He always came alone. He fired shots into the air and shouted, "Everyone lie on the ground. Whoever moves will be shot." Sometimes California, sometimes Texas, a different city each time, but the manner was the same: fast, dangerous, and fearless. It took the FBI 8 years to catch him, and when they caught him, they found a complete logbook of 56 robberies. This was not an ordinary thief. This was the Shootist, who had turned bank robbery into an art. If you like real-life crime stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon, because the next story will be even more shocking. In the late 1980s, the FBI, America's largest investigative agency, was after a robber who had redefined bank robbery. He came alone, handled everything, and vanished like a military operation. People called him the Shootist. Every step was carefully calculated. The timing was so precise that it seemed as if everything had been rehearsed beforehand. Top FBI agents and local police were searching for him, but each time he stayed one step ahead. On November 5, 1987, San Diego, California. It was afternoon. The city was calm, but inside a bank the sound of gunfire erupted. Panic ensued. People screamed and ran hither and thither. A masked post-gunman shouted, "Everyone lie on the ground. Whoever moves will be shot." Without any hurry, he walked straight to the cash counter, threatened the staff, and forced out the cash from every drawer. "Don't trigger any alarm. No die packs. No marked notes." He warned them he didn't touch the vault because he knew that would take more time. His rule was clear: rob quickly and disappear. As soon as he stepped outside, the bank staff called the police. But even in the best circumstances, it takes a few minutes between calling and the police arriving, and within those few minutes, the robber was miles away. When the police arrived, they sealed the bank. The FBI and local police teams began scouring the crime scene. Every corner, every clue was searched, but neither clear CCTV footage nor a solid glimpse of his face was found. Here began the FBI's longest and most complicated search. The hunt for the Shootist had become a real war. The bank alarm had rung, but by the time the signal reached the call operator and police units were dispatched, the mysterious gunman had already vanished. As officers entered the bank, they immediately started a full crime scene investigation. Surprisingly, the gunman had not worn gloves, yet he left not a single fingerprint. He hadn't touched any surface, neither the door nor the counter nor the glass. From every movement it was clear that everything had been pre-planned. Every action was completely under control. Because the case involved a bank robbery, it fell into the FBI's hands. FBI Bank Robbery Coordinator Special Agent Jack Kelly was assigned responsibility for the case, and it became a top priority investigation for them. Special Agent Jack later said this was no ordinary bank robber. This was a takeover robber who seized control of the entire bank rather than quietly passing a note at one counter. Takeover robberies account for only 5% of bank robberies in America. Even in those cases, most robbers do not discharge their weapons inside the bank. But this man fired his gun. And the most important thing, he worked alone. Most takeover robbers operate in teams of 2 or 3. This was a single-man operation, fully professional, fully planned. The deepest impact of his attacks was on the mental state of those inside the bank. The sound of gunfire, the fear for life, and his presence turned the incident into lifelong trauma for many. Agent Jack said that in such cases witness statements often differ widely. One says he looked about 30, another says 40. Someone claims he wore fake mustache and a wig. Someone else says he came without any disguise. Every witness described different height, complexion, and age. In such a situation where people are trying to save their lives, even what they see is often not reliable. Agents did obtain the bank's security camera footage, but it didn't help much. Surveillance cameras of that time were low quality, grainy visuals, blurred images, faces not clearly visible. The footage only showed that the robber was a white man about 6 feet tall with a beard and mustache, but the face was not identifiable, and there was no conclusive lead. Special Agent Jack Kelly became convinced this robber had not started with his first bank. They began digging through unsolved bank robberies from previous years, and an astonishing match emerged. About a year earlier, in San Diego itself, a bank had been robbed in exactly the same way. In that case, As soon as the robber entered the bank, he fired shots, jumped over the counter and took the cash, leaving no trace. In both incidents, his modus operandi was identical. With so little information and so few clues, it became clear this man was extremely skilled and probably planned much of it weeks in advance. The FBI began to realize he had not stopped, because only a month after the second San Diego attack, he struck a third time in the same city. Each time the same method, firing at the ceiling on entry, subduing people, crossing the counter and sweeping up the cash. It was now clear this was not just theft. It was a deliberate attempt to spread fear. Agent Jack Kelly said that a man who could fire inside a bank would not hesitate a second to shoot anyone who tried to stop him. The FBI now considered him a deadly threat. In California, the FBI used a system that assigned each serial bank robber a code name so agents could communicate easily, and if the case went public, the media would use the same name. Special Agent Jack Kelly gave him the name the Shootist, a robber who had made firing a part of his crime. On December 14, 1987, the Shootist appeared again. This time he chose Mission Viejo, California, a local bank about 70 miles north of San Diego. The entry was exactly the same, firing at the ceiling on entry, shouting "Everyone lie down," people dropping to the floor in terror, and he walked straight to the cash counter. Money was filled into his bag swiftly and fearlessly, without a pause, and nobody could understand how it all happened so fast. The FBI was now tracking the Shootist's every move. Special Agent Jack Kelly said, "It was my responsibility to personally review the bank robbery reports coming from FBI regional offices in California and nearby areas so that no pattern was missed. Still, there was no trace of the Shootist. No witness came forward, no fingerprints were found, and no CCTV footage revealed his face. It was like he was a ghost, someone no one could see," Agent Kelly said. By then the Shootist had robbed at least US. But for the FBI it was not just a matter of money. They feared that if the pattern continued, one day this man would actually kill someone. With each robbery he grew more aggressive and dangerous. The Shootist disappeared for almost a year, but as 1988 drew to a close, 3 attacks occurred within 5 weeks. Agent Kelly was sure the man had been active somewhere that whole year. If not in California, then surely in another state. Agent Kelly contacted FBI field offices in other states, and during that time they found a link that connected all the cases. Similar styled bank robberies occurred in Texas during that same year, and the most shocking case dated back to July. In Texas, a white man with a beard and glasses entered a bank, fired toward the ceiling, and forced the manager to fill a bag with cash. The same method, no vault, only cash from the counter drawers, and as he left he warned them not to trigger alarms, die packs, or marked note. Bank employees, trying to save their lives, obeyed the gunman silently. But then a loud bang occurred. "Don't you move," the gunman shouted, and the sound of bullets resonated through the bank. The manager fell to the ground, shot in the chest. Panic erupted. Someone immediately called the police. The Texas Rangers, the FBI and EMTs arrived within minutes. The manager was in critical condition, but by luck survived. Others were so terrified that no one could identify the gunman properly. A witness said it all happened so fast, and with such fear that they couldn't remember his face clearly. The crime scene investigation began again, but the result was the same. No solid leads. The CCTV footage showed the same old blurry face, a man with glasses, his face mostly hit. Special Agent Jack Kelly contacted the Texas Rangers. Teams from California and Texas began working together. The FBI noticed a new pattern. The Shootist always chose bank branches near highway on-ramps, so there would be no delay in escaping. Now they suspected he might have a getaway drive, but neither a car nor another man was ever seen. Every robbery was executed so cleanly it seemed like a film script. Everything went according to plan and left no trace. In 1988, the Shootist carried out 6 more bank robberies across Texas and California. Each time the same method, the same manner, and the same result vanished before police arrived. The FBI hoped the media could help. Agent Jack Kelly said they needed someone who could identify the robber and give a firm list. They used local newspapers and TV channels. His sketches and information were published everywhere. As the hunt intensified, so did his notoriety. He became one of America's most wanted criminals. In 3 years, the Shootist had committed more than 14 bank robberies. Each robbery felt like military-level planning. Each was so clean that no concrete clue remained. Agent Kelly said, "He planned so carefully that we had nothing to track him by." But there was one thing he always left behind: the bullet. He fired at the ceiling in every bank, and those bullets were the only hope for the FBI's forensic team. If rifling marks could be found on those bullets, the FBI could check them in the ballistic database. Perhaps the gun could be identified one day, and then the shootist could be found. But there were two major problems. First, the bullets were fired from a .38 caliber revolver, and there are thousands of guns in that category. Second, most of the bullets were found in such poor condition that on them there were no clear marks. Agent Kelly said what we found was not enough to identify him. The shootist's 17th robbery happened in San Diego's University City area. Inside the bank, the same old story repeated. No witness, no identification, no fingerprints. But for the first time, investigators found something outside the bank that told them a new thing about the shootist. He was not only clever and fast, he was extremely cautious and meticulous, paying attention to every small detail. The FBI got another new piece of information, which made it clear that the shootist planned and prepared fully before every robbery. An investigator said that on the escape route there was a wooden fence. He had loosened that fence before the robbery so that later he could reach his getaway car directly without any obstruction. Special Agent Jack Kelly had chased more than 100 robbers in his career, but he had never seen a professional like this. Agent Kelly said we had to give him credit. He was indeed cunning and very smart. Still, the same question always ran through Kelly's mind. Was there any witness, any crack, any tiny piece that could complete this whole puzzle? The FBI launched a search operation throughout the area. They questioned house to house. Every block was checked, but the result was the same. Again, the same silence. No witness and no new information. By mid-1989, the shootist had robbed about $500. He had struck in more than 10 cities. The same terror, the same outcome everywhere. Now the case was not limited to one city or one state. It had spread across multiple states, which made the investigation even harder. Agent Kelly said when a criminal starts operating across states rather than just one city, following him becomes far more difficult. Special Agent Jack Kelly united police from California, Texas, and other states, FBI agents and the Texas Rangers into a single team. Now everyone had just one objective, one clue, one witness, anything that could lead the team to him. The FBI suspected the shootist might be a former criminal recently released from prison. Agent Kelly said we obtained lists of everyone released from prison in 1986, the period when this robbery spree began. The FBI checked each name, but once again no name matched. The FBI sent surveillance photos to every agency, but no one could identify the man. Every surveillance picture showed one thing clearly: he had taken every precaution to hide his face. His hair and mustache often looked unnaturally dark, as if fake. The task force was now certain. The shootist arrived every time in a different disguise. Fake mustaches, wigs, even makeup to hide skin tone. Each time he appeared like a different person in the bank. FBI agents took the surveillance photos to costume shops. They asked everywhere, "Have you seen this man? Did anyone buy such a disguise from you?" But the answer was the same everywhere. No identification, no link. Investigators then began to analyze each of the shootist's robberies in terms of money. They analyzed every case one by one. When did the robbery occur? How much was taken? And how long until the next robbery? When the FBI combined all this data, they began to see a pattern. Special Agent Jack Kelly said we started to feel he spent about $3,000 a week, and when his money ran out he planned the next bank robbery. That meant the shootist was robbing to meet his needs. He was not a gangster stealing millions. He took just enough to last him the next few weeks. Agent Kelly said it became easier to understand that after a fixed time he would become active again. As the FBI dug deeper into the data, another surprising pattern emerged. The shootist mostly attacked on Mondays and Fridays, and often targeted different branches of the same bank chain. That meant he didn't just pick a city or a bank. He understood their internal systems and routines. Every move was carefully considered, as if planned professionally. But a major problem remained. There were hundreds of bank branches in the areas where the shootist was active. The FBI's only aim left was to catch him before his next attack. The FBI decided to keep watch on branches that fit the shootist's preferred pattern. Every Monday and Friday, FBI agents sat in cars outside those branches, watching for hours without making a move. But another big challenge emerged. Agent Kelly said there were so many banks and only limited agents. Each week the same question remained: where and when will he strike next? There was no sure answer. The FBI worked on another theory. Often bank robbers launder stolen cash by taking it to casinos and gambling so they can later claim the money was won at the casino. The FBI sent the Shootist surveillance photos to large casinos in California. A few days later, a casino replied, "A regular high roller who looks very much like this man comes here." The casino sent its surveillance footage to the FBI. FBI agents tracked that man and then called him in for an interview. Special Agent Manuel said his appearance matched the Shootist quite closely, but he had solid alibis for the days of every robbery, clear evidence proving he was not involved, and so another lead went cold. On June 23, 1989, in Arlington, Texas, the Shootist carried out his 18th robbery. By then he had robbed banks across a coast-to-coast area of about 10,400 miles. But this time he made a small yet crucial mistake. A teller in the bank put a dye pack into his bag. A dye pack is a small explosive packet that usually contains red or blue ink and sometimes a tracking device. These packets are hidden among the cash notes. As the Shootist left the bank, the bag exploded and all the cash was stained blue. Instead of panicking, the Shootist did something that surprised the FBI for the first time. Within hours he robbed another bank, 2 robberies in one day. Agent Jack Kelly said it was the first time he attacked twice in one day. Until now the robber had always been calm, precise, and completely in control. This action showed he was becoming restless. Special Agent Jack Kelly decided that from now on, every branch would be immediately alerted after a robbery. He said if we got any new clue, any witness, or even the slightest clear face in surveillance footage, we would send it to every jurisdiction. The case had become a collective responsibility of agencies across the country. The task force carefully studied the surveillance pictures, and now a new detail emerged. The Shootist used a .38 Smith & Wesson revolver, a weapon that was very common in U.S. police departments at the time. But the most surprising thing was that whenever he held the gun, his trigger finger stayed to the side, exactly as taught in police training. A new question echoed within the team. Was he a police officer now or formerly? Perhaps he was no longer in the police, but the information showed he had deep knowledge of police training and strategies. Agent Kelly said he knew how we think, how we move, and how we pursue. The suspicion deepened. Was the FBI chasing someone who had once been one of them? The FBI was now fully convinced. The Shootist was running bank robbery like a profession. He did reconnaissance, understood police patrol routes, and robbed where it took the longest for police to arrive. Every move was pre-planned and executed with precision. By then he had robbed more than 20 banks, and every case left absolutely no trace. The FBI's only hope was the public. As media coverage increased, the Shootist pictures began to appear repeatedly on TV and in newspapers, and finally a witness emerged after the Mission Viejo robbery, and he told police that immediately after the robbery he saw a man running and climb into the trunk of a red 4-door car. The car sped away and had California plates, but the witness could not see the driver's face and did not note the plate number. Based on that testimony, the FBI began checking every car that fit that profile. But there were thousands of such cars, and tracking each individually would have taken many months. Still, the testimony proved one thing. The Shootist did not work alone. He always had an accomplice. On March 30, 1990, the same Texas bank that the Shootist had robbed a year earlier was hit again. He returned as if he had no fear of being identified or caught. The FBI now understood he had become even more fearless and dangerous. For him it had become a game or a mission, and he was willing to take greater risks. By the end of the year, the FBI's task force had linked the Shootist to 27 bank robberies, and by then he had stolen approximately US. But the most astonishing thing was that despite such a large spree, not a single usable fingerprint had been found. During every robbery he was careful not to touch any surface. Even when he crossed the counter, he was careful not to place his hands on anything. When he left, he pushed the door open with his elbow or hip rather than with his hand. It was not hard for the FBI to believe. He planned everything and until now had not made a single mistake. The FBI understood that surveillance and clues alone would not be enough. To catch him, they had to understand how he thought. So the case was sent to the behavioral profilers at the FBI Academy in Quantico. The FBI did not know his real name, but they wanted to read his mind. Every detail of every robbery was examined. The FBI profiler studied everything carefully, and then prepared a full profile based on the robber's behavior. The profile began with the comfort zone theory. That meant the shootist was possibly from Texas. His planning and clean execution pointed that way. He may have once been in the military or part of a professional force. And the most striking thing, after so many robberies no one had identified him, which meant he had a single companion who completely trusted him. The FBI profiler issued a clear warning. If this man ever got trapped inside a bank, he might take hostages or not hesitate to start shooting. In April 1991, the shootist shifted his focus to Northern California. From a bank in Sausalito, he stole US $15,000, with the same style, precision and speed. But for the first time, the shootist made a mistake. A partial palm print was found on the bank counter. When only a small part of a palm, like the area under the fingers or a corner of the palm, leaves an impression on a surface, it is called a partial palm print. The FBI had a little hope. Perhaps this was the clue that had been missing. But then another problem surfaced. Palm prints are not usually stored in police databases. The FBI searched every possible record but found no match. The task force was back at zero. 2 months later, the shootist targeted a new place, Bellevue, Washington, near Seattle. He was no longer limited to California or Texas. His reach was the whole of America. He had become the biggest, most successful, and most widespread bank robber in modern FBI history. By 1991, the statute of limitations had expired on many of his earlier robberies, meaning he could not be legally charged for those old cases. In August 1991, in Los Gatos, California, the shootist robbed another bank. By then his total stolen amount had reached US, but this time a solid clue was left behind. A fake mustache was found inside the bank. It was the first piece of evidence that might be directly linked to the shootist. The FBI had hope, but again there was a problem. DNA tests were expensive at that time, and the FBI had no suspect profile to compare against, so that clue was useless. It was now clear he changed disguises every time. By the end of 1991, the shootist had been linked to 33 bank robberies across 18 different cities. Yet surprisingly, there was still no concrete evidence against him. No name, no face, no DNA, and no fingerprints. It had become the longest and most mysterious bank robbery series in FBI history. The shootist's grainy surveillance photos were re-examined. In every picture, a small but strange detail appeared. Something was worn beneath his shirt. Agent Jack Kelly said, "At first we thought it might be body armor, but on closer inspection it seemed like a back brace that supported his lower back and abdomen." The thing was, he climbed over the teller counter absolutely comfortably each time. Agent Kelly wondered why he would wear such a brace. Maybe he wore it simply to support his movements. The FBI began working on this clue. They contacted every chiropractor in the areas around the bank. Maybe a patient matched this description. But the problem was most chiropractors did not have clear photos, and none could identify the shootist. There were thousands of chiropractors across 3 states. Reaching each one was impossible. A chiropractor is a health professional who treats bone, nerve, and muscle problems without medicine or surgery. Agent Kelly said, "We covered as many clinics as we could, but no lead emerged." Another dead end. In 1992, the shootist showed no signs of stop. That year, he committed 7 more bank robberies, including another in Bellevue, Washington. By then his total loot had reached about Lagwag's amount, unclear. Now the FBI and local police began to ask themselves, are we really able to keep the public safe? A lone man repeatedly robs banks, fires shots each time, and escapes without being caught. Agent Glasser said, "If next time someone was accidentally or intentionally shot dead, could we say we had truly done everything we could?" It had become essential to stop the shootist at any cost before he took a life. Gradually, the shootist's luck began to turn. This time, the bank's security cameras captured the clearest pictures yet. Agent Jack Kelly said the photos were so clear that the San Jose police for the first time put a forensic sketch artist to work. An expert took those pictures, digitally removed the disguise, and prepared a sketch to estimate what he actually. In such a process, a deep understanding of human anatomy and the vision of a trained artist is needed. As soon as the sketch was ready, the FBI sent that face to Crime Stoppers. news channels, and local boxes. Agent Kelly said, "We spread that sketch all over the area and asked the public for help." San Jose Detective Sergeant Jack Baxter said, "We needed the community's help to catch this man. Someone must have seen or heard of him somewhere." Until now, the shootist was just a shadow. But for the first time his face had come to light. Now the only question was, would anyone recognize him? On May 11, 1994, finally a phone call came. A man said, "I know who this man is." It wasn't solid proof, but for the first time a name appeared in the story. Johnny Williams, or John Williams. The man also said that he sometimes used the name Robert Hall. According to what he said, Johnny was around 40 years old. He drove a red four-door car. His wife was always with him. She helped him plan the robberies. He also said Johnny was always armed, extremely short-tempered, and had once said that he would never be caught alive. If the police ever cornered him, he and his wife would kill themselves. Now the FBI had a name, a car color, and an almost complete face. These were valuable clues, but the problem was that there were hundreds of people with the same name. Finding the real one was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The FBI tried to narrow the list. They focused only on the names whose ages matched the caller's description. The FBI searched through the California DMV records, and two names stood out: Johnny Madison Williams and Robert Hall. Both records had the same person's photo. Agent Kelly said, "When we matched the two photos with the sketch made in San Jose, the resemblance was so exact, it looked like the sketch was drawn from that very photo." Now the shootist had a name, a face, and for the first time a real chance of being caught. The FBI pulled fingerprint records from the DMV and confirmed that Robert Hall and Johnny Williams were the same man. The true identity of the shootist was now revealed. Johnny Madison Williams, a former U.S. Marine from Texas. When they looked into his past, they found earlier records of robbery and theft. Then the focus shifted to his wife, Carol Williams. It was discovered that she had purchased the same .38 caliber revolver seen in the bank robbery video. She also drove a red four-door car registered in her maiden name, and the biggest thing, the couple had no legitimate source of income. Yet they lived in a $3,500 Ocean View house in Los Osos, California. The FBI was now sure Johnny and Carol were the shootist. FBI Special Agent Jim Wilkins said, "It was the kind of neighborhood that had only one way in. If an outsider came, everyone would notice immediately." The FBI wasn't sure if Johnny Williams was at home, but one thing was certain: he always carried a weapon, and if cornered he would use it. The agents set up a hidden surveillance point, a place from where they could watch the entire house without being seen. The FBI also made an emergency plan. If they saw him returning in his red car, they would stop him before he reached home at a place surrounded by open fields, with no escape route. But days passed, and there was no movement at the house. Neither Carol nor Johnny appeared. Investigators began to suspect, had they already left, or were they planning their next heist? Kelly called Special Agent Don Glasser in Seattle. He simply said, "It's going to happen. He will rob in your area. Be ready." There was no solid lead, only an intuition. But now the entire hope rested on that one hunch. Special Agent Don Glasser patrolled Bellevue and nearby areas all day, his eyes and ears waiting for that one radio call. And then the call came. Code 91. A bank robbery in Kirkland, Washington, only 10 miles from Bellevue. The shootist had struck again, using his same old style. As soon as he entered the bank, he fired toward the ceiling. "Everyone get down. Whoever moves gets shot." He told the teller, "Put the money in the bag. No die packs, no chipped bills." But this time something went wrong. The teller panicked and mistakenly put wooden paperweights in the bag. The shootist suspected there might be a die pack. He trembled with rage, but this time he didn't shoot. Furious, he stormed out of the bank before police or FBI could arrive. Agent Kelly had already flagged all of Johnny Williams' credit cards for tracking. As soon as the Kirkland robbery happened, a transaction popped up at a hotel in Washington state. Seattle Special Agent Don Glasser immediately rushed to that hotel, just 10 miles from Kirkland. This time, they had solid information. The name used to check in was Robert Hall, but the biggest question was, he still there? When Agent Glasser passed through the hotel parking lot, he noticed a red four-door car. It was parked facing forward, as if ready to flee at any moment. Glasser quickly checked the license plate, and there it was. The car was registered to Carol Williams, under her maiden name Hawkins. Now the situation was extremely delicate. If Williams was indeed in the hotel and sensed that the police were onto him, he might try to escape, or take someone hostage. Agent Glasser went straight to the hotel manager. "Do you recognize this man? This is Robert Hall, or his real name, Johnny Williams." The manager took one look and said, "Yes, that's him, and he hasn't checked out yet." Glasser immediately called Jack Kelly. "We found him. Not just his identity, we know exactly where he is." Kelly was already packing. The moment he heard the news, he caught the next flight. Now the operation involved Jack Baxter, San Jose PD, FBI's CTT, the local police force, and several undercover agents. But this time, everything had to be done with extreme secrecy. All agents were instructed: no FBI jackets, no radios, no badges, everyone had to blend in like ordinary civilians. Within minutes, FBI agents quietly surrounded the hotel. Surveillance vests were used so that if Johnny looked out the window, he wouldn't notice anything suspicious. Several rooms were rented to run the operation from inside the hotel without drawing attention. The area was fully covered. Even if Johnny stepped outside, there would be no escape, but they had to be patient. The FBI decided not to act until they saw him with their own eyes. By nightfall, Detective Jack Baxter and Special Agent Jack Kelly reached the hotel. They didn't want anyone hurt, not Johnny, not any agent. The FBI's plan was crystal clear. Catch him outside the room so there would be no risk if weapons were inside. Dinner time was approaching. Everyone hoped he would step out for food, but hours passed. Neither he nor Carol appeared. Now the tension rose further. It was reported that Johnny had a police radio scanner and could listen to law enforcement communication. So the agents stopped all radio chatter. Everything was communicated in code, or through gestures. Slowly some signs appeared. Special Agent Jack Kelly noticed. The room light was on. The curtains were closed, but faint light from the TV flickered through the window edge. After 7 years of searching, the FBI was now extremely close, but they needed confirmation. Was he really inside? A plan was made. A hotel employee would help. The staff member was shown the suspect's photo and instructed: make up a small excuse, like a maintenance issue, and knock on his door. The plan was simple. The door would open, the staff would take a quick look and confirm his identity. But this was risky. If Johnny got suspicious, it could turn deadly. He was always armed, and the FBI feared that if he felt threatened, he might shoot. The hotel employee walked casually to the door, knocked gently. Johnny opened. The employee said, "Sir, I just wanted to know when we can replace the air filter in your room." Johnny calmly replied, "I'm going out in an hour. Come back then." That meant, exactly 1 hour later, he would step outside. The staff hurried downstairs, straight to the FBI team. His face said it all. There was no more doubt. Johnny Madison Williams, the man the FBI had hunted for years, was inside that room. Now the FBI had everything: his name, identity, location, and timing. He would come out in 1 hour. Detective Jack Baxter ordered the team. Everyone in position within 45 minutes. He must not get a single chance to escape. All eyes were on the clock. 1 hour passed, then another. Johnny didn't come out. The team grew anxious. Had he sensed something? Was he aware of the surveillance? Then the hotel front desk phone rang. From Johnny's room. Special Agent Jack Kelly recalled. He asked, "Can I borrow a typewriter? I need to write a letter." But the most surprising thing, he wanted the typewriter brought up to his room. The FBI went on high alert. If they sent it up, they'd lose the chance to bring him down safely. The FBI instructed the hotel manager, "Tell him the typewriter is in the office near the front desk. He'll have to come down to use it." Johnny, without suspicion, said, "Okay, I'll come down in a bit." Now the FBI had their perfect chance to arrest him quietly in a closed room, away from the public. The small office near the front desk was ideal, close enough to monitor, yet isolated. Special Agent Don Glasser said, "We went in and arranged the furniture so that when he entered, we'd have a clear line to him." Then the FBI placed one final item in the typewriter. A sheet of paper that read, "Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent." When he would sit and read that page, he would understand his game was over. FBI agents hid in the nearby rooms. Surveillance set in every direction. Now it was just a matter of waiting for Johnny's final step. 40 minutes passed, every second thick with suspense. Then he stepped out of his room, walking toward the front desk. Johnny Madison Williams Jr. moved casually, calmly, as if it were just another day. He reached the desk. The staff pointed him toward the small office. "Mr. Williams, this way please." Johnny quietly turned and walked toward the door where his fate awaited. As soon as he entered, FBI agents emerged from every side. No shouting, no scuffle, just cold, calm authority that said, "There's no way out." The room had already been cleared. Every corner, every piece of furniture arranged for one purpose, to arrest him quietly, without bloodshed. Johnny Madison Williams Jr. looked around, realizing he was surrounded. The agents were ready. They knew this man could be dead. But as soon as he entered, he didn't panic, didn't resist, and had no weapon drawn. He simply stood still. Special Agent Jack Kelly looked into his eyes and said, "Johnny Madison Williams Jr., it's over." Johnny lowered his head, as if he had always known this day would come. The game was over. Next was his wife, Carol Williams, always by his side. The agents knew there was no need for drama. They waited patiently. Soon, Carol stepped out, walking toward the parking lot. She was just about to open the car door, when the FBI surrounded her. "Please FBI, hands up, you're under arrest." Carol stopped, didn't scream, didn't say a word, simply turned and surrendered quietly. Johnny and Carol were now in FBI custody. No shots fired, no one hurt, no chaos. A robber who had outsmarted the FBI for 8 long years, robbed 48 banks, spread fear across 18 cities, and escaped after every shootout, now walked out of a door silently, never to escape again. Then came the evidence. Johnny himself said, "Go ahead, search my room." The FBI entered, and found police radio scanners he used to listen to law enforcement chatter, handy talkies for team coordination, fake mustaches, wigs, makeup, every disguise for every robbery, cash from every heist. But the most shocking thing, a gray briefcase. When agents opened it, they realized this wasn't an ordinary thief. He documented everything: the date, day, bank name, address, and the exact amount stolen from every robbery. Special agent said, this wasn't evidence. It was a criminal's self-written diary. The search of Johnny's car revealed 2 things that told the whole story: a .38 caliber revolver, the same one seen in every robbery video, and a small 2-inch revolver never seen before. Both were loaded, proof that he never went anywhere unarmed. Johnny and Carol were kept in separate rooms, without torture or pressure. Johnny himself sat for questioning. The FBI agent asked, "We've linked you to 24 bank robberies, is that correct?" Johnny looked up, smiled, and said, "If you've caught me, you probably already know the whole truth." There were 56 robberies that the FBI had never even suspected. Johnny explained everything: how he surveyed each bank for weeks, mapped every street, exit and turn, how he bought disguises from Dallas, fake mustaches, wigs, makeup, and how he even learned police radio codes. He said, "I had a back injury, so I wore a but I chose a chiropractor whose files the FBI couldn't access." One man, 56 bank robberies, around several $100,000 stolen, and managed to outsmart the entire system for 8 years. And when he was finally caught, it wasn't the FBI's count, it was his own confession that told the truth. Carol Williams confessed in court, admitting her role as the partner of one of the longest-running bank robbers in American history. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Johnny Madison Williams, the Shootist, pleaded guilty to 27 robberies. The remaining 29 were beyond the statute of limitations. He was sentenced to 92 years in federal prison. No parole, no release, 1 lifetime behind bars. Johnny Williams' game was over. But this wasn't just an FBI victory. It was the victory of the anonymous caller who picked up the phone and gave a name. The victory of the hotel employee who knocked on the door, pushing fear aside. It was the victory of an entire team that for 8 years chased a ghost, a man who vanished after every robbery.